This is Proxy Countdown. Welcome to the big show for the week of May 27th, 2024. Alongside my tag team partner, Matt Moscardi, I'm Damian Rollis. On today's countdown, female power at DuPont, a CFO named Butch, a proxy cage fight at Crown Castle that includes a son-in-law named Trip, progressive shareholders at Wingstop, and on the big vote, a man named Elon. Let's get to our top stories. Let's start at DuPont, where it was announced that CEO Edward Breen will transition to the role as full-time executive chair in June. The new CEO at DuPont will be Lori Koch, who is currently CFO, and the new CFO will be Anatella Franzen. The new CFO at Raymond James Financial will be Jonathan Butch Orlog Jr. That's it. Just want to report that a man named Butch will be the head of numbers at a financial services company, which makes sense when you realize it is headquartered in Florida.
How dare you?
A leadership change was announced at Neurocrine Biosciences. Kevin Gorman will be replaced by Kyle Gano, but of course Kevin will remain on the board in order to irritate Kyle. There's a new director at Lockheed Martin. Her name is Heather Wilson. Heather served as the Secretary of the U.S. Air Force from 2017 to 2019. This means that there will now be 4 Lockheed Martin directors with direct Air Force connections, including CEO James Takelet. And at Morgan Stanley, Executive Chair James Gorman announced that he will be leaving the board at the end of 2024. Let's move over to our proxy cage matches. The proxy cage match is over at Crown Castle. All 4 dissident directors received the average support of about 6% of Crown Castle shareholders. The nominees were led by co-founder and former CEO Ted Miller, his son-in-law, Trip Rice, and Crown Castle's founding CFO Charles Green. Now, Glass Lewis supported former CEO Ted Miller and the founding CFO Charles Green, but no other candidates, not the son-in-law, while ISS supported none of the 4 dissident nominees. Previously, Crown Castle staved off an activist campaign by Elliott Management in December through a cooperation agreement and leadership change, which is what prompted Ted Miller to come back and begin his own battle for board supremacy. So Miller left Crown Castle more than 20 years ago, but argued that his candidates, which included his son-in-law, possessed a strategic insight that Crown Castle's 12 incumbent directors lacked. So there you go. The proxy cage match at Crown Castle. Moving over to our vote results table. This is where all the news is this week. I once again looked at over 50 annual meetings over the past week. These are just the largest cap companies, about roughly the equivalent of the S&P 500. Once again, the vast majority of directors received well over 90% support. No surprise there. Only 5 directors out of roughly 500 received even more than 20% votes withheld. That's just 5. Joseph LeCobb from Align Technology, Cheryl Miller at Celsius Holdings, and 3 directors from Wingstop, Kate Lavelle, Kay Madadi, and Michael Skipworth. So that's it. And they all were just about 20%. So that's it for shareholders angry at directors. While not a large cap company, I wanted to briefly mention Beyond Meat, the fake meat company's share price. I'm just going to give you a little history lesson here. The fake meat company's share price was $235 in 2019, $125 at the beginning of 2021, $65 in 2022, $14 in 2023, $9 at the beginning of 2024, and is currently around $7. So despite this horrible downward trajectory for shareholders, all of the directors up for election at the 2024 AGM received the approval of more than 96% of shareholders.
I think we need to stop saying that directors or investors are unhappy at 20% or more. The investors seem never to be unhappy. There's nothing that they are ever really unhappy about.
I can find there's a little bit of discontent in this week's news stories. There continues to be, however, there does continue to be wide support for pay practices. Only 6 companies showed considerable dissent. The true winners of the week, Matt, are the members of the compensation committee at Vornado Realty Trust. Realty Trust. Despite the fact that 43% of voters said no on say on pay. That's a huge number. It's basically almost a majority. 43% said no. Pay chair Daniel Tisch and pay committee members William Hellman IV, Raymond McGuire, and Beatrice Hamza received 96% support from Vornado Shareholders. 96%.
They had to set up the pay,
Yeah.
everyone, right? You know that.
Other companies where shareholders were relatively pissed off at pay include Ross Stores, Amazon.com, Excel Energy, Morgan Stanley, Permian Resources, all about 20% said no on pay. And while it's not a large cap company, it's worth noting that 76% of shareholders said a big fat no to pay practices at JetBlue Airways. That's a lot, Matt. 76%.
That smells like discontent to me.
Moving over to the world of shareholder proposals, let's start with the victories at Wingstop, of all places. I had to look it up. Wingstop sells chicken and fries.
Yeah, fried chicken.
Headquartered in Texas, of all places. Shareholders said yes to a proposal by the Accountability Board requesting a greenhouse gas emissions report. 52% of shareholders said yes at Wingstop. How is this possible? I have no idea.
That's do we know if Wingstop is incorporated in Delaware but headquartered in Texas like Tesla is?
So you're suggesting that they're going to ask to move to Texas?
That's what I'm wondering. I'm wondering if the move here is going to be, we don't want to do that. Let's just move to Texas.
And at Dexcom, a proposal brought by John Chevedden asking for a transparency and lobbying report, 51% said yes. So 2 victories there over the last week. Next up are the almost victories. So close at American Tower. A special meeting proposal got 45%. And a disclosure of racial and gender pay gaps got 49%. 3 moral victories at JP Morgan Chase. 43% said yes to an independent chair. 30% said yes to indigenous people's rights indicators. And 41% said yes to excessive golden parachutes. That's pretty impressive overall, I got to say. At JP Morgan Chase.
I'm going the other way. Like, there are no moral victories. Just vote yes. Just get over the hump.
How about this one? At NextEra Energy, 41% said yes to a board matrix proposal. This is kind of a new one. The New York City Employees Retirement System requested that the board disclose that each director's self-identified gender and race ethnicity, as well as the defined skills and attributes, particularly with respect to climate change. So almost there. I don't know why they wouldn't do that one anyway. Seems
Everybody
like
else already
do
does that one. Does NextEra not read another shareholder proposal or shareholder filing?
And at McDonald's, a proposal requesting additional disclosure regarding poultry welfare. I love that. That's a additional disclosure regarding poultry welfare. That's basically asking, how are the chickens doing, right?
Right.
That got 36% yes. That's great. 36% to me, a victory.
That will get a 1% yes when Wingstop moves to Texas. That's the next proposal up at Wingstop next year. That's a prediction.
And finally, here are my favorite oddities from the past week from shareholder proposals. Despite all the successes we're seeing with simple majority voting so far in 2024, I've reported about several wins. Some wins are so big that they're in the 90% approval. Despite that, only 7% of shareholders said yes to a simple majority vote at Thermo Fisher. Again, I don't understand.
I can't understand the patterns here. Yeah, what about Thermo Fisher is not good for majority voting, but it's good in like a dozen other places where we're getting 90% plus votes.
On that note, remember how I said 41% of shareholders said yes to limit excessive golden parachutes at JP Morgan Chase? At CVS Health, only 6% said yes to the same proposal.
I think you'd want to give Jamie Dimon an excessive golden parachute. Like he's everyone's favorite.
The most shareholder proposals were at Amazon.com. There were 14 of them. They all failed. 2 interesting attempts at compensation reform. At Tenet Healthcare, a proposal requesting a report on plans to integrate ESG metrics into executive compensation failed. Only 5% said yes. And at PayPal, a proposal asking for stockholder approval of director compensation. I love that one. Only 3% said yes. And finally, how about these 2 great shareholder proposals at CVS Health? A proposal to prohibit the renomination of any director who fails to receive a majority vote got 18% of the vote. But that's an interesting way of getting rid of zombie directors, right? Like,
yeah, you can't renominate them.
Yep. And how about this one? I love this one. A proposal requesting a policy requiring directors to disclose their expected allocation of hours among all formal commitments got only 3% of the vote. Now, this is a funny one because this is from the anti-ESG National Center for Public Policy Research, which is probably why they got no support because everybody hates them. But they're asking for a very ESG-centric proposal, right? Which I love. I want all directors to disclose their allocation of hours. Like, that's just brilliant to me. The other funny part about this one is that in the proxy, they refer... this is the National Center for Public Policy Research. They refer to ISS as independent shareholder services. So
was that not ironic?
That's not bad, though. They got 2 out of 3 right there. They almost know who ISS is.
They almost got all 3 letters.
That's cool.
I want to go backwards for a second, though, because I want to talk about the PayPal stockholder approval for director compensation. It never occurred to me until this outcome that we actually asked shareholders to weigh in on management
executive pay practices, right?
But the ones that actually report to the shareholders are the directors. The directors manage management, and the shareholders manage the directors. Wouldn't it make more sense, actually, to have it be cascading pay?
It is a great question. I wonder if the reason why we don't do it, and again, a reminder, these are non-binding votes anyway, but I wonder if the reason why we don't do it is because for some odd reason, relative to executive pay in the U.S., the directors don't really make much money. Like, it almost seems reasonable what they make compared to the CEOs.
So the data actually would mildly conflict with that.
Okay.
Because we look at CEO pay. The average CEO pay in the S&P 500 is around like 14 million, I think, or 12 million per year.
For the entire
average,
board.
Right? When you look at the board,
14 million.
Like the CEO.
The CEO.
I'm talking about the CEO.
Yes,
I'm talking about the CEO. Mm-hmm. But when you break down the hourly wages,
sure, I know.
We know that the directors
That's true.
on their actual take-home pay, because they're getting options, they get stock that they often just sell off. Their take-home pay ends up being more on an hourly basis to be a director or equivalent as it does to be a CEO. And directors can be directors at 5 different companies where we usually frown upon that for CEOs. So the directors make nearly as much as CEOs do, or as much on an hourly wage basis. So why don't we weigh in on how much they get paid?
And to segue into the big vote, that was one of the reasons the Delaware Chancery stated for suggesting that the directors at Tesla lack independence because they're making a great fortune on their equity at Tesla, right? So it's a fair point, and I'm guessing that within the next 10 years, you will not be seeing a vote on director pay at U.S. companies.
I'm guessing that it will take 30 years, and ISS will finally change the policy to catch up with the times by then.
Is that the independent shareholder services or institutional?
No, that's the other one, the institutional shareholder services.
Let's move on to the big vote. This week, we are covering Tesla. It's become the granddaddy of all companies to talk about, right? Tesla. I mean, this is the company that everybody talks about, not just people in our field. I mean, this is This is the one that they all. So this is the onus is on you this week, Matt. How do you add insight into a talk to death situation over there?
It's really hard. It's
Tesla.
Really hard.
And let me give you a little bit of background before you get going. So Tesla, unfortunately, has an insipid, abhorrent, anti-shareholder classified board, meaning that you don't even vote for every director annually, which I don't even know how they get away with. Market cap this big, it's definitely an outlier. So we're only get to vote. Shareholders only get to vote on 2 directors this year. That's the CEO's brother, Kimball Musk, and Rupert Murdoch's son, James Murdoch. So it's a very Nepo-centric vote this year. But here's the big story. And I don't know how you don't know this, but here's the big story this year is that the 2 things being asked to vote on are a ratification of Elon Musk's pay, the huge pay package that the Delaware Chancery just shot down, in which he
from 2018.
What was the total bill on that? $56 billion, I think, something like that.
50 something billion.
And the other one is a hissy fit related to that vote, which is a re-domestication, they call it, to Texas, because Elon got upset and is threatening to move the company to Texas because he apparently believes that they will be more corporate friendly in Texas if they incorporate there. Although that remains to be seen, because Delaware is one of the most shareholder friendly, corporate friendly places on earth. So I mean, know.
we can back into those requests, because the process by which things happen at Tesla is a joke.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
So all right. First of all,
I'm ready for the joke. If you have an actual joke,
it's not. I wish it was a one-liner. If you've gone to freeflowanalytics.com and signed in, gotten your free account, and looked up Tesla, what you'll see.
I do it so often.
People named Musk or that have worked at Tesla own more than 85% of the influence of this board.
And you're referring to Elon Musk controls 69% of board influence. Co-founder and former CTO JT Straubel, who is actually also on the board, controls 10% of influence. And, of course, Elon's brother, Kimball, has 7% of influence.
So this is data that you would have had before Delaware threw out saying there's so much influence that Elon Musk has on this board. This is data that's right there. Okay, so your basic starting point here is Elon Musk chooses the board, runs the board. Like, there can be a lot of pretend processes about re-domestication, for instance. But, Musk tweeted out, should I reincorporate in Texas? And
should I?
And the answer came back, yes.
Yeah,
he said, should
pronoun.
I? And then the board said, wait, Elon, you can't do that by yourself. We need a process. So the process was a couple of board members join a special committee to investigate. 2 of the board members recuse themselves. So the special committee is one lady on the board who decides, oh, well, when I narrow it down from, should we re-domesticate to what state should we re-domesticate? Somehow I magically got to Texas, exactly what Elon had suggested.
Yeah, this is a great part of the story, which I'm glad you pointed out. So the Tesla needed to create a they call it a special committee of the board to look at the re-domestication. And because they can't find an independent director other than Kathleen Wilson-Thompson, she's the entire committee. Can you call, and I got to ask you, can you call one person a committee? I don't even know.
Joe Gebbia was on the committee at one point and recused himself because he was worried about the blowback to him individually in his company if he said anything. So not only did they choose one woman on the board, but they chose one woman whose name no one really knows, who doesn't own another company, so that the blowback would be less, because they knew it was roughly a sham. I mean, I'm speculating, but we can infer that from the action.
And
what Tesla did.
I want to add to that, because the re-ratification of his pay is also based on a recommendation from a special committee of one, and that's again Kathleen Wilson-Thompson. So it
was one woman who's basically making the recommendations for both of these things. But it's false to assume that when you look at free flow analytics data, we know that really it's Musk who's suggesting it and they're justifying it, right? Like that's what's happening. There's no point in really talking about like if you're a listener of this show or Business Pants, we've been talking about Tesla for years, talking about how the board is a joke, the processes are a joke. That, you know, the brother Kimball Musk has been reelected multiple times by shareholders. The votes seem to be relative sham. Like nobody really cared that Elon's brother was on the board for years until now.
I also want to point out this. Tesla actually is my favorite company to point out to clients and prospective clients of why I love our data. And that is we solve something for Tesla that no other ESG data research providers can provide, which is that we demonstrate in our data that, in fact, Elon Musk is in absolute control of this board. But you can't do that with traditional data because it's one share, one vote. He doesn't actually own a majority of the shares. He's not even the chair of the board. So no other provider can articulate and quantify his control like our influencer data, which is why this is why I love pointing out Tesla as the prime example of the use of our data for this.
Long story short, our data, our conversation pieces on these shows, it's not worth reiterating what we necessarily think about the board. I'll front run my recommendation on the directors vote no on both Kimball Musk and James Murdoch.
Seems like an easy one.
Like this seems like an easy win, right?
You don't even need us. I don't think you even need us for that. I mean, when one of the so-called independent directors attended your wedding and the other one is your brother, even like run-of-the-mill corporate governance analysts back in the year 1215 or whatever, they knew that this is a bad situation, right? Like they know that this is not independent oversight.
I think if you need two people on a podcast to tell you having the brother of the founder on the board creates a conflict of interest, then we're past the pale. It's like we don't have to do that. So I actually want to frame the conversation this way, and it's going to be both counterintuitive, and we'll come back to do I pay Musk, do I reject the board questions, but I want to frame the whole thing in this way, and it's something that you and I talked about in pre-production that really clicked for me, which is there is Tesla, the asset. You are an investor in Tesla, the asset, and then there's Musk, the personality, and all of the assets associated with Musk and all of the assholery associated with Musk, okay? I want to separate those two because really the question before you, if you're an investor, is how do I salvage Tesla, the asset that I own, in the absence of Musk, the personality that I may or may not be driving the pricing of this asset?
Right. Yeah. So because I think what we've discovered, and I think what the general population has discovered, is that Tesla really is a bit of a meme stock, right? And the reason why, because really they're just selling cars and they don't exactly have a significant market share in anything, and there's a lot of problems associated with those cars. But what Tesla gives you is public. It gives you access to Elon Musk, right? It's the only company out of his huge empire, including SpaceX, XAI, Twitter, all of them, Boring Company, Neuralink, whatever. This is the only way to invest into the entity that is Elon Musk, which is probably why you find, a boring car company has this, or I should say had this elevated share price. So,
well, I mean, and that is part of the fundamental problem with the asset itself, because Musk wants you to believe that Tesla is not a car company. If it was a car company, Tesla trades at a 45 PE ratio now, right? And in the meme stock era, in the pandemic era, when it first actually got profitable, remember that was only 2-3 years ago that it actually became profitable. Right. It was trading at astronomical PE ratios. It trades at a 45 today. Do you want to know what car company PE ratios are?
Sure.
GM trades at a 5.
Okay.
Ford trades at 12, Toyota at 8.5, Honda at 7. Even the Chinese company BYD, which is world renowned now for being one of the absolute leaders in this technology, in electric vehicle technology.
Reportedly, literally driving circles around Tesla's technology at this point.
In fact, so much so that I have a working theory that Musk is so indifferent to the car piece of Tesla because the Chinese beat him. Like it's flat out, BYD is a better company at making cars than Tesla is. They traded an 18 PE ratio.
Right.
18.
And I guess this is part of the narrative of why Elon likes to claim that Tesla is not a car company. He very confusingly likes to call it an AI company at times, even though he just got through raising like what, $6 billion for his other AI company, XAI.
For the other
right?
AI company.
So I'm confused. But anyway,
and here's the ecosystem. Like, if you consider Tesla to be an AI company of the future, it's up against Alphabet and Microsoft and Facebook, Meta, right?
And his own company,
and
XAI.
Apple.
Right?
Well, those are the public companies that we can see. They
That's
trade
true.
in the 20s and 30s PE ratio. So even if it's not like they're making the chips. Nvidia's trading at 90 PE ratio, which means if Tesla pivoted to make AI chips, then maybe it's competing in a way for the other AI companies. But really, they're just making the software. What he wants you to know is the AI that Tesla is going to be is sort of sensory robotic AI fed the AI from his other company, XAI, which is using being trained on the data from his other company, Twitter, X, all together under which is using, and then Tesla's gonna be buying the structural engineering of his other company, SpaceX, to build what? Labeling this asset is incredibly difficult, except when you think of it as this. It is the only publicly traded method to own Elon Musk.
Yes, only access.
That's the only access you have. And that's what makes it a cult stock, basically some sort of version of a meme stock.
Yes.
That's why you see that the trading value is effectively a Musk premium.
Yeah.
You're getting extra PE ratio. The stock price is pumped up to just reflect, I want access to Musk.
In fact, his cult of personality inflated that so much that it became basically his giant piggy bank, right?
That's exactly right. It's his piggy bank. And if Tesla traded at car stock prices, the PE ratio of car stocks, you should expect the share price to drop 70+%. If you assume it trades in like the 50, even a generous car stock at 15 to 20 PE ratio, you're talking about a 75% reduction in the share price.
Right.
That is what investors are terrified of. So you have the
investors
premium.
who bought in. I guess yes, the investors who bought in when the stock was.
It doesn't
high,
matter
right?
when you bought in, because if you bought in now, even if you bought in early, right, you've made a lot of money. You can bail out. You're not that worried about it. You still made money. But if you bought in any time in the last 4 or 5 years, what you are absolutely petrified of, and the investor fear premium, is 70% loss in the value of this company because it no longer has Musk and it's just a car company.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the Musk premium is propping up the price multiples over anybody else, even if it was considered some sort of AI company, because you're really only getting... you don't own the private company that is XAI. You own the public company, and it's not Microsoft or Google. You're still getting a premium over those. So what do you really got?
I will say, ironically, though, what's the opposite of a premium in this case? Because it might be the anti-premium. I don't know what the word is for that. Elon Musk himself might be the reason the stock price is driven down. It's been slowly going downwards, and it might be because of him, right?
Well, that segues neatly, almost as if you have a document in front of you with my notes in it, into Musk himself, Musk the personality. So if we can't quite value the asset, or if you valued it as a car company, it's got a tremendous amount of losses built into the stock price. It's overvalued car company. If you can't quite peg what Tesla is, because Musk wants you to think it's one thing, but it in actuality does a different thing right now, Musk is what you're afraid of losing. And to your point, the Musk premium is eroding.
Well, this is why I refer to this. This could be like Tesla's Uber moment, right? Like when Uber needed to eject its horrible founder, Travis Kalanick, because of just his abhorrent behavior to save sort of the long-term...
The asset.
Right? The long-term asset that is Uber. This could be happening at Tesla eventually.
But I think the eventually is already happened, right?
Okay.
Like, so part of the justification of the 2018 pay package that we're talking about re-ratifying is it will keep Musk focused on Tesla. We want to pay him. We want his interests.
How do we know
focus
that?
him.
You're saying that's a justification, but there's
that
no
was
proof.
the part of the justification. You can see that in the court decision. Like their conversations with Musk were about, we need to keep him here at Tesla for life. And Musk himself
he's been distracted.
said he's at Tesla for life.
But he's been distracted well before the Chancery came up with a decision. Yeah.
So that did not work. He's an incremental CEO, and he's barely that. I named 4 other companies as the CEO of, and haven't even named Neuralink or the Boring Company, which are the other 2 that he's also CEO of.
Nor did you mention his 400 children.
Yeah, there's not enough time or ketamine in the day to get through the amount of companies that he is attempting to manage. And you can get a car company right now. You can buy a car company stock that comes absent Nazi symbols, union quashing, anti-DEI,
That's every car company.
Like limited attention spans, incremental CEOs, professionally run boards. You can get that everywhere else, right?
Yeah, yeah. And the market is if you follow the headlines, the market is catching up too. There are going to be low-priced electric vehicles coming from very reputable car companies.
So if Tesla isn't quite a car company because Musk doesn't want it to be, and it also doesn't have market share, and it also trades at a multiple that's much higher, and it isn't the cult of personality that is Musk that's driving some of that valuation is eroding. What is really happening here is Elon Musk's, as much as Tesla is the only public option to buy an Elon Musk property, to get access to Musk himself.
Sure.
For Musk, the trade-off is Tesla is my only piggy bank to pay for all my other ventures. I could keep going back to private markets and raise capital, but it's way more efficient.
This is
way
easier.
faster, and I get much more money by pulling it out of Tesla.
You just fool a bunch of retail investors and a bunch of like wonky institutional investors, and you keep your share price inflated, then you can access the piggy bank.
I mean, think of it. It took him like some time to raise $6 billion for XAI at a valuation of $24 billion. Meanwhile, he can just demand of Tesla shareholders $50 billion, which he made in 2 years, and used it to buy Twitter. He can just demand it, and they give it to him. The access to liquidity is a premium to Musk himself that is incredibly valuable. But either way, he's not the CEO of Tesla. He's the incremental CEO of 5 companies, or if you vote against his pay here, or vote against re-ratification, vote against his friend on the board, he leaves Tesla immediately. But he's functionally not even the CEO. Okay,
right. He's
that's
the figurehead behind a meme stock, I suppose.
That's the question as an investor you have to fundamentally ask yourself. If Musk is either an incremental CEO who's half paying attention, not really here anyway, and using this as a piggy bank, he's going to leave now or later. He's going to get bored of this Tesla thing now, or angry at Tesla shareholders now, or he's going to leave later because he's got 30 other things happening where the piggy bank's been turned off, and you might as well leave.
And let's not forget, this might not be the worst case scenario. I mean, it definitely won't be the worst case scenario long term. In the short term, it will be, but long term for Tesla shareholders, you already have a co-founder on the board, the former CTO in JT Straubel. So it's not like the company can't exist without Elon being an incremental CEO.
So I think that in and of itself is really what this vote is about. Like, I think you vote against Kimball and James Murdoch.
You do that anyway, just for the sound corporate governance practices, right?
I mean, like, you'd be justified to vote against Kimball at a bare minimum, Murdoch as well, right? But I think the most important proposals in this entire proxy are 2 shareholder proposals.
Okay.
Not the pay, Texas move.
Which ones are those?
Or even the directors. They are Jim McRitchie of corpgov.net. Shout out to Jim McRitchie. he has a proposal to reduce the terms of the directors to 1 year, killing the classified board.
Yeah.
You absolutely, if you know that Musk is out one way or the another, short term or longer term, and you know the cost of the longer term is paying him, re-ratifying his pay and giving him more money and just letting him raid the piggy bank for a little while longer so that you can buy some time, you need the board to be declassified, because the goal will be to reconstitute the board in exactly the way you talked about. And it chokes me to say it, but an Uber-like professional board. You want professional board members to steward this asset, because it is right now a car company. And while Musk says he's going to take the AI with him if he has to leave, if he's pissed off enough at Tesla shareholders, he already has. He already has XAI. He's already got all these other private things going on. Those aren't Tesla properties. So you're losing the Musk premium anyway. You like the car company's not doing as well. You want actually someone to steward this asset so that Tesla, which makes cars and maybe eventually robots and software you can sell, doesn't have to be Musk doing that. It can be some professionals who take it into the future.
Yeah, it's debatable whether it's Musk doing it in the first place. Really.
Anyway, right, exactly. Anyway, so Jim McRitchie's proposal allows you to begin to actually slate directors or vote differently, to vote for different skills on the board. With the classified board, you cannot do this. Without voting yes on this, you do not set yourself up as a shareholder for the future.
Look, to me, this is a no-brainer anyway. In my head, I'll pick an arbitrary number. Any company that reaches a market cap of, let's say, $1 billion, even for like 10 straight days, should be annually held elections, no matter what, forever.
No doubt.
End of story.
I totally agree.
All right.
The second shareholder proposal is John Chevedden's simple majority vote.
Two are the Hall of Famers here. Okay. Chevedden and McRitchie.
So this already came up for vote in 2022, I think it was. Maybe it was, it was 2022. And it got a majority of the shareholders, but not the 66 2/3 vote required to actually change it as a bylaw. Musk owns, doing the math, Musk currently owns 21% of the shares, 20.8%. And Ellison, he owns around 20% of the shares now. But even then, he owned 20.8% of the shares, and Larry Ellison owned 1.7% of the shares, and they voted no, and it still got a majority. So today, institutional ownership went from 15% when the prior vote was to 30 or 42%, I think now, which means you have a legitimate shot of getting this passed. And if you can get simple majority votes and a declassified board, you already have proxy access and one share, one vote at this company. That gives shareholders a tremendous amount of leeway to both prepare for a Muskless future, but also control a Muskless present, right? Like an incremental Musk present. So let's talk about what that future is, because I think you can't set yourself up for that future until you pass these proposals, but you want to be prepared for next year to slate new directors or reconstitute the skills on the board.
You'd be crazy not to be prepared for a drastic succession change at Tesla. And based on Elon Musk's distraction and just track record of being, just outrageous, you have to prepare for that, right? You have to.
Yeah, I think, you don't have a choice.
Just like you have to prepare for Bob Iger to come back to be CEO of Disney for the 18th time. You got to be prepared.
Well, I think you're 100% correct in your assessment of Straubel. So Straubel was the CTO of Tesla. He's considered one of the co-founders. He's also considered independent on this board because he's been long enough. We made jokes about this last year when he was added to the board. I mean, it was merciless because it was so stupid that they would do this. But now it may be accidental genius because you have a built-in succession plan. You can line up J.B. Straubel, who knows the company at least from its roots, to be the interim CEO of Tesla when Musk says, "I'm out of here because you didn't pay me," or "I'm too busy."
It's
right?
already a victory because I don't think that JT Straubel has pissed off half of America. So that's that's a lot of customers. So
when we look at the skills, like we create knowledge maps of every board on Earth here. We estimate basically what are the base skills and knowledge in the boardroom based on what the titles of the directors are, their resumes, where they got, what their degrees are, any sort of biographical information we can associate with a set of skills. What we know is J.B. Straubel duplicates effectively most of Musk's skills. Mm-hmm. He's duplicative, not additive. But in an ex-Musk Tesla, that means you have those same skills already represented in the room. What you need is non-executive board members who have complementary and often duplicative, some level of duplicative skills, but also complementary skills. So if Straubel becomes the CEO or is the de facto CEO because Musk is so distracted, your future board needs engineers. It needs professionals who have been on multiple boards before. In fact, I was actually looking at directors on other boards, thinking if Tesla was a sports team and I had to reconstitute it, who would I trade for? Like, what other board members might I trade for? And I hate to say it, CEO Dara at Uber is not a bad target here. He's been in a place where he had to clean up post horrible CEO founder. Mm-hmm. He's turned it into a profitable company, not without its warts, but Tesla already has a tremendous amount of warts anyway.
And let's not forget that Uber was teetering on the edge of like, will this company go away because so many people hate it? Remember? I mean, there were campaigns to delete Uber. There was just so much bad going on with Uber that Dara does deserve some credit for keeping it on the track.
He, at least at a bare minimum, he's seen it happen, and he's now a professional. And like I was looking at boards like the NVIDIA board, John DeBerry, who's on the NVIDIA board, who's a name that no one would have ever heard of. He's a professor. He's a mechanical engineer. He's at the California Institute of Technology. He's one of the most accomplished human beings on Earth, and he's got direct experience on the NVIDIA board looking at things like AI, and he's somebody who can understand them, right? If you're worried about losing Musk, why would you think, oh, if I lose Musk, we're dead? Yeah. Rather than thinking, how do I reconstitute those skills at the board level with professionals who have seen it, who don't have the baggage and sort of tweet diarrhea that Musk has?
The good news is, Matt, unlike sports teams, you don't actually have to trade for directors. These directors can sit on multiple boards.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so although I'd love to trade, because we could trade a Denholm for a DeBerry all day long. But the other things that this board could use if you pass sort of majority voting and declassifying it is international exposure. Imagine bringing in BYD executives or someone international from China, from India, from these massive markets. As Tesla's expanding as a car company and building out the concepts of AI in cars or batteries, which they're a world leader in batteries. Why wouldn't you expand your market presence through board experience and knowledge and understanding? You'd actually enable yourself by removing Musk, who is willing to belittle huge markets or individuals or people.
Right.
By removing that from the board, you open up a lot more possibility of other markets.
I was going to say, the irony is that Elon, the CEO of one of the most famous, if not the most famous electric vehicle company in the country, who he actually belittles is his customer base, because it's only it's only the liberals in this country that want to buy electric vehicles. And you see it in all the polling. They're the ones who are favorable to EVs, and that's the market actually that Elon is constantly belittling and taunting.
And Elon, trying to appeal to the non-democratic progressive crowd, launches the Cybertruck, which is the ugliest car that's ever been built, and rusts, can't pull things, recalls immediately. Literally, like the thing that he made to appeal did not appeal to the customer who would have bought it. Like it has no appeal. So the non-executive...
Look, beyond all this story, Matt, I think there's a case to be made that again, forget the details of this, of the gossip of all this. There's a case to be made that Elon Musk is just not the right fit to be CEO at Tesla.
Not the future of Tesla, right? The future Tesla.
Mostly because, as you say, you call him an incremental CEO, but just for a lot of other missteps along the way. Just a lot of failed promises, a lot of failed products. So yeah.
So the board, the non-executive directors, of which there are like 3 on this board who really count, that aren't named Musk or didn't work at Tesla. Really, the skill sets represented by them are finance. You've got Ira Arempris, who's in finance.
And Robin Denholm was a former CFO, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Right. So you have a lot of finance experience, which you're going to need. I wouldn't even be opposed to leaving Denholm on the board.
Not as chair.
As you reconstitute it.
Sure.
Right. But you don't need Kimball Musk, whose base skills are food production.
Yeah, let's move on from Kimball Musk.
And you don't need James Murdoch, who is an media executive. Yeah. These are antithetical to the future of Tesla. You don't get any extra additive. They're not even retail focused. They're worse than that, right? They're not useful.
We've been repeating this on several of our shows. The reason why Musk and Murdoch are there is just to provide defense for Elon. It's just to support the CEO. That's it. There's nothing else.
So the director vote recommendation here is easy. You vote no on Kimball and no on Murdoch this year. But you're really eyeing 2025 because you need to vote yes, 100% yes on declassifying the board and 100% yes on simple majority. And you need to engage with the sham nominating committee as it exists to prepare to slate directors in 2025. Right. When the board is declassified, you need to start thinking, like reaching out to the John DeBeers of the world and saying, hey, we want to draft you to what is likely to be like one of the most important companies in the world for the foreseeable future. We need to protect that asset and that share price.
There's universal proxy access to do this now.
They do have proxy access to do this now. That's exactly right. This also means you have to vote against reincorporating and redomesticating in Texas because you want the comfort of the Delaware Chancery Court. Like you actually need that. You can't have like an incorporation by Tesla reincorporating in Texas. You effectively are ceding the control back to Elon Musk because Elon Musk wouldn't reincorporate there if not to reject shareholder oversight in Delaware.
Of course.
But this brings me to what would be, I think, the hardest thing for me to swallow.
Yeah.
I know that the pay package of Musk, what he's asking in re-ratifying the pay package is effectively, I already gave you all this performance, you should pay me for it, right? Mm-hmm. But he ignores the fact that the pay package intent was to keep him focused on Tesla, which it did not do at all. He raided Tesla like a piggy bank. As soon as his options were cleared, as soon as he get his 10th and 11th tranches of the options, which he hasn't exercised most of them, the first thing he exercised it for was to buy Twitter. To distract him further. By giving him that much money, it did not keep him focused on let's build Tesla to be the greatest company in the world. It forced him into I'm going to buy this other company and then pretend like it somehow is relevant to Tesla. Yeah. Like I'm gonna
really
raise money.
Alienate his customer base at the same time.
I'm gonna raise money to start another AI company, but I'm gonna pretend like the AI will stay with Tesla, not that other company. So if you give me more money, if you give me my money back.
What are you getting at here? It sounds like you want to re-ratify his compensation.
I am going to suggest.
Oh no.
As investors are considering, do we keep Musk around a little bit longer, or do we letting him be the incremental CEO, or get rid of him? Do we give him access to the piggy bank a little bit longer? I am going to suggest as an investor, you spend all of your votes, your energy.
I feel like I should
you
cut
cannot
your mic
fix
right
this
now.
all once. You need to declassify that board. You need to get the simple majority, and you re-ratify, because what that will do is will allow you like a peaceful transfer of power.
I think you're playing three-dimensional chess here is what you're trying to do.
I'm really trying to do that with this with this thinking. There's a chance that even by re-ratifying, it still gets thrown out because he's effectively trying to end run around the court decision, right? Like, and it's going to invite new lawsuits. But the fact is, he's distracted anyway. He's doing 10 other things. If he leaves tomorrow, then you're cleaning up multiple messes simultaneously. And if you didn't declassify the board because you couldn't get that vote, it's a world of hurt. Like you're losing 70% of your value. It's just a car company. And I don't think Musk it was ever more than that, but the Musk premium has some value to investors at least. I just think
in the short term, sure.
My recommendation is going to be re-ratify the pay, since the most important votes are 1-year terms for the directors and simple majority.
Well, if you're looking for an out from Matt's horrible recommendation, you can listen to my recommendation, which is to vote no on re-ratifying a space. So if you need that, if you're on the fence, I appreciate what you're saying, but I think you can achieve that by doing everything else you said. You don't have to re-ratify pay to keep him interested for 2 more years as you.
I think if you don't re-ratify the pay, he leaves immediately.
Yeah, and you're worried that.
I'm not worried about that, but if you're a shareholder, if you're an
current
institutional shareholder,
the whole thing will blow up.
I think you don't, because you can't guarantee that you're going to win the declassifying the board because shareholders seem very fickle about some of these votes. I think Jim McRitchie is absolutely right to put this on the proposal as a proposal this year in particular. It's the most important thing that you can do because what you need is professionals on that board. You need to Uber the board in the weirdest way possible because no one thinks of Uber and thinks, oh, well, that was a well-run company. But you need professionals who can set yourself up for, if Tesla is truly a robotics company, not just a car company, and the car is the first robot that it built, and it needs AI inputs, it needs sensor inputs, it needs batteries, it needs all of the things that are important to building kind of like a future for robotics, this Optimus concept. If that is the mission of the company going forward, then you need the people on the board who actually do that. You do not need a media executive and a cattle ranching brother. You don't need those things. Musk is not the only person in the world who can do that. There is absolutely 0% reality that Musk is the one who can do that. Musk has vision, but it doesn't mean that he runs anything well or does it all of his companies have been some smoke and mirrors, a lot of luck, and he is talented. He's a talented visionary. It doesn't mean he's the only one who can do it. There's a lot of people who are working on it and who are beating him at it currently. OpenAI is beating him at AI. So is Anthropic. BYD is beating him at cars. Boston Scientific is beating him at robots.
And you want to reward him for all this failure? You want to re-ratify his pay?
What I'm saying is you need to put the other people who can beat him on his board, because inevitably he's going to be distracted by all the other things.
I think what you're really doing here is you're angling for a free tour of the Tesla factory. There were reports of the news,
Elon, if you're listening,
yesterday that if you vote yes to re-ratify pay, he will give you a personal tour of the factory,
which is an excellent use of his time. He doesn't have anything else to do running 6
Can we get out of this? Can we wrap this up on Tesla? That's the Tesla big vote coming up on June 13th.
Summary of my recommendations: vote no on Kimball Musk. Vote no on James Murdoch. Okay, it's nice that the two of them came up this year. They have no skills that you actually need on this board. Vote yes on pay,
on re-ratification,
no matter how much you hate
on re-ratification,
re-ratifying pay. But most important, vote yes on Proposal 6, declassifying the board, Jim McRitchie's proposal. Vote yes on Proposal 7, John Chevedden's proposal, simple majority vote. Vote no on everything else. You don't need anything else.
That's the proxy countdown for the week of May 27th, 2024. Whew, that was a good one. Join us next week when we jump back into the alternative democracy pool. Forever on the lookout for shareholder sharks, floating band-aids, and wayward directors.